All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a concept that's not just a rulebook. It's more like a blueprint for an entire way of life.
So let's start with a big question. What if every single thing you did, from a thought you have in private to a big public action, was all part of one single interconnected system? I mean, really think about that for a second. A world where nothing happens in a vacuum, right? Where every choice you make has a place and a consequence.
Well, in Islam, the concept of responsibility is pretty much exactly that. It's this comprehensive framework for life. And we're not just talking about a list of do's and don'ts. It's way bigger. It's a holistic system where, every single part of being human is linked together by this chain of accountability.
And there's a specific word for this, mas'uliyah. What's really cool is that it comes from the Arabic root verb for to ask or to question. So at its very core, the idea is that you are answerable. You're going to be questioned about your commitments, your actions, your decisions. And this covers, well, everything.
Okay, so let's get into it. First up, the core. Individual responsibility. We've got to start here because this is the absolute foundation of the whole framework. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with the individual.
This verse from the Quran, wow, it lays out a really powerful and intensely personal idea. It says, your fate, your actions, are fastened to your neck. It's like you have this inescapable record that is tied directly to you and only you.
And seeing the original Arabic text right here really drives that point home. It just highlights how fundamental this principle is, this idea of ultimate personal accountability. The takeaway is crystal clear. No one can step in and carry your burden for you, and you can't carry theirs either.
So this individual responsibility, it actually splits into two main jobs. First, there's the outward duty, the one towards God. This is what you'd expect, right? Things like prayers, sticking to ethical principles. But then there's a second duty, and this one is inward. It's a responsibility you have to yourself. Think of it like psychological or spiritual hygiene. Cleaning out the bad habits and vices and really trying to cultivate virtue and goodness inside.
All right, so that's the individual. Now let's move to the next layer, because this is where it gets really interesting. This responsibility doesn't just stay with you. It ripples outward, connecting you to your entire community.
And this is captured in a really famous teaching from the Prophet Muhammad. He says, each of you is a shepherd, and each of you is responsible for his flock. It's such a powerful metaphor, isn't it? A shepherd doesn't just, own the sheep. They have to guide them, protect them. They're totally answerable for their well-being. So the message is that every single one of us, in our own way, has a flock that we're responsible for.
And this just shows you how deeply this idea is woven into the social fabric. When you look at the source text, it's using that exact shepherd analogy to really anchor family responsibility as one of the very first, most fundamental parts of our social duty. So, what's crucial to get here is that this social duty isn't just some vague, fuzzy idea. It's actually broken down into really clear areas. You've got your family, parents to kids, spouses to each other. You've got your professional life, doing your job with excellence and integrity. And then there's your public life. Encouraging good, speaking out against wrong, and just generally being a positive force in society. All of these are separate, but connected parts of this social responsibility. Okay, so we've gone from the individual to the community. Now let's zoom out even further, to the biggest picture possible. Because that ripple effect we talked about, it doesn't just stop with your town or your city, it goes global. It even becomes civilizational.
The first piece of this is what's called civilizational responsibility. And the idea, which comes from this verse in the Quran, is for the entire community to be a justly balanced one. Basically, to act as a witness over humanity by being a positive, fair, and ethical model for everyone else to see.
And right alongside that human-focused duty is a direct responsibility for the planet. There's a clear command: do not do mischief on the earth after it has been set in order. And this is widely seen as a direct mandate for environmental stewardship. You're meant to be a caretaker of the planet, not someone who corrupts or destroys it.
What's so fascinating when you look at the source text here is how it puts these two things together. The duty to humanity and the duty to the environment are right there, side by side. It tells you that in this worldview, the well-being of people and the health of the planet, they aren't two separate things. They're basically two sides of the very same coin.
Okay, so we have all these layers of responsibility. But how does it actually work? Like, what are the rules? Let's take a look at the operating system, if you will, that runs this whole framework.
It's pretty logical, actually. For someone to be held responsible, 3 conditions have to be met. First, you need intellect. You have to be of sound mind. Second, you need to have reached maturity, or puberty. And third, and this one's huge, you have to have free choice. The action has to be your own decision, not something you're forced to do. If any of those are missing, accountability just doesn't apply.
And this is where the rubber really meets the road. You can see how these big principles are meant to translate into real-world stuff. In politics, it leads to things like consultation inequality. In economics, it means you have to have things like charity and systems to prevent monopolies. And for the environment, it's about actively protecting resources. So it's not just theory, it's a very practical framework.
And finally, the accountability itself plays out in 2 different arenas, you could say. First, you've got the worldly consequences, the social and legal results of your actions, right here and now. But then there's also the otherworldly dimension. This is the belief in a final judgment, where every single thing, even something as small as an atom's weight of good or evil, will be brought out and accounted for.
Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. What's the end game? What is the ultimate goal of this whole huge system of responsibility?
It really all comes down to one word: balance. The entire point of Mas'uliyah, from that personal level all the way up to the global, is to strike a harmony. It's a framework that tries to perfectly balance the rights and freedoms of the individual with the duties and the needs of the whole community. The goal is to create a society that's not just strong, but also fair and just.
And that really leaves us with a final big question to chew on. What would actually change in our own lives, in our communities, in our world, if we truly saw every single choice we make, whether it's in private or in public, not as some isolated little thing, but as a ripple that has consequences that spread out and touch everything and everyone else?